Welcome to the 8 Billion Project, where we're on a mission to make an impact by discovering and sharing the purpose of every person on this planet. I'm your host, Liza, Florida. Enjoy today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to the 8 Billion Podcast. I'm your host, Liza, Florida, and today I've got a special guest. Debra Coleman is a producer and host of Have a Seat, Conversations with Women in the Workplace podcast. Feeling a bit burned out from her own career path, she created this show as a way to engage in conversations with women about their own career journeys. Doing so, she has inspired and motivated herself, as she truly believes we all have a unique story to share and tell. So welcome, Debra, to 8 Billion Podcast, and thank you for coming on my show as a guest today.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. I am thrilled. First of all, shout out to Laura and Lisa, the other Lisa, for connecting us. That was amazing.
Yes.
Women in action, empowering each other. I love it. Laura Di Benedetto is who I'm referring to, for those who may not know. But yeah, so thank you. I am so honored to be a part of the 8 billion. So the 8 billion stories. Yes.
That's right, Debra, because you are one of 8 billion people that are in this world. So I'm happy to share your story now, at least have you on the other side, because you are typically on my side interviewing.
That's right. That's right.
So tell me, how did you start? Have a seat? Have a seat? Okay. Tell me how you started that and how the whole concept came about.
Well, it's kind of fun. Well, it's really kind of simple. I was at a place, as you mentioned in my bio, where I was just kind of feeling disconnected from like my peer groups, or I just kind of felt like there was something missing. I noticed that prior to that, I had collaborated with other women in my industry on projects. And we'd come together and we'd have this great, collaboration and camaraderie. And then once the project was over, we, of course, naturally just went our separate ways. And we still kept in touch, but that day-to-day interaction was gone. And I was like, I kind of like that. It was kind of fun connecting. And I kind of felt also in my own career path that I was questioning what I wanted to do. Did I want to continue? And so my husband and I just were talking about it one day, and he's like, and plus I am a podcast follower. I had, up until that point, had like a library of podcasts. And back in the old days when commuting to work was a thing, I was like always listening to podcasts on my way into work, on my way home. So I was in the podcast space as a listener. And I thought maybe there's a way to marry this idea with podcasting, because I'm kind of like a tech geek. I'm always like interested in learning new things. Not saying that I could pull it off, but I like reading up and learning new things. So I thought maybe there's a way I can like connect the two. And so we were talking, and my husband said, why don't you just kind of start a podcast? Just talk to other women. You want to talk to women and you want to hear about their career journeys because you're looking for that inspiration. Why don't you just try it? So I said, okay. So it was January. It was a new year. You're in that like new year, new me mode, so.
I was just going to say that. New year, new you. But this year it was new year, new world.
Basically, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir. You know all about that, starting a podcast. Like if I think back about where I started in January, I'm sure you can attest to this, to now be in November. Oh my gosh, what I have learned in like 9 months, 10, 11 months. Amazing. I mean, there's still so much to learn. So I was just gobbling it up, learning. And I, of course, started with my inner circle, like interviewed my sister, and then I interviewed my neighbor.
Isn't it amazing?
It is. Like, and you know what I've learned too? When you start to say, I have a podcast and I am interested in, women's journeys. Would you be interested in being a guest? You either get like two reactions. You either get, like, before you're even done finishing your ask, yes, sign me up. When can we do this thing? Kind of like you and I were like, let's do this,
Yes.
Or you get, no. You're like, oh no, I'm too shy. I don't want to tell my story, which I totally respect. That's fine, But yeah, so then it just snowballed. And I started like from my inner circle to reaching out to like women in the industry. Like I'm an executive assistant, so I reached out to other EAs out there in the administrative professional world, and then it just sort of like word of mouth. It just like yours, people, you just meet people through fourth connections, fifth connections, and it's just grown. And it's amazing. It's just been exactly what I think was missing.
Right. And so have you taken the podcast, are you doing this full time?
No, this is definitely a side hustle. This is definitely a passion project. So I still have my full-time job. All is good there. This is definitely something I do after work, on the weekends, in the evenings. So it's definitely my hobby, passion project.
And so you had going into 2020, you had no clue. It was just in January, it clicked one day and you're like, I'm going to start a podcast.
Right. Pretty much. Yeah. I thought, I did my homework, like how do you even record one? How do you even get started? So I really read up, did my homework. My husband's in the audiovisual field, so he kind of was like a nice, go-to person to kind of get me like the lingo and microphone use and what do you do to record and that sort of thing. So I literally just started with my laptop, my little MacBook, and I pulled up YouTube, so many awesome, wonderful resources out there. Opened up GarageBand and hit that red button that says record, and I just I just did my welcome show, like my intro trailer kind of thing first.
Okay.
And then dragged my neighbor, Amy Brown, shout out to Amy, my neighbor, screaming.
Hi, Amy. I haven't met you yet, but you'll probably be on 8 billion because you're one of the 8 billion people out here.
I am going to connect you too. She has quite the story. But yeah, and then it just took off. Yeah. So I just started with the red record button. As you know, you just stare at that record button like, what am I doing? What do I even say? And you just have to do it. You just have to hit record and just start talking, and it'll just all start to take shape, which it did.
And so you were saying kind of what led up to it was like a burnout was it work? Was it like, because remember, this is why 2020 was a great year for a lot of podcasters to even start their podcast. And there have been many people that have jumped on because it was really definitely a year of such transition for everyone. And so there's so many different stories and so many people following their passions and purpose, right? It was huge awakening.
Yes. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. That's why I can't look at 2022 negatively, because I think it has really, just as you said so perfectly, for many of us, it has awoken things that we might not have had the bandwidth for before, or just taken the time to do. And of course, this started before the pandemic was even a thing, like in January. But yeah, I was just kind of questioning, like, what do I even want to do? What's my future like? I have X amount of years still to work. Am I even still interested in what I'm doing? I was just at a kind of a crossroads, I guess a midlife career crisis, I guess, if you want to say that.
Right.
But I didn't necessarily want to like change careers. I just was looking for that something extra. I guess I was looking at people who had side projects and passion projects and sort of envious, like, well, what is it that I want to do? There's got to be something I can do. Do I want to start volunteering? Maybe that's what's missing. Like maybe I need to do something like that. But yeah.
Yeah. So see, it's like a juncture in your life that I think almost everyone comes to it. And sometimes what's really crazy is some people have been in their careers like 20 years, 30 years, and they're like, holy crap, like I'm actually questioning this, that is there more to life? Like, and that's what it is, right? I think for you were able to fulfill it through connections with women because you went through it and now you want to share the stories of other women whom you like have gone down that same route.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I got to thinking too that, we hear from so many wonderful experts out there and wonderful coaches and, maybe like celebrity types and influencers about their paths. And I thought, you know what, like you, similarly, my sister has a story. My neighbor has a story. The mother, the stay-at-home mom has a story. The military wife has a story. The teacher, the lawyer, the doctor. There are so much like 8 billion. There are stories out there that matter. And I just know how exciting it is for me to tell my story sometimes, that maybe, everybody deserves that 15 minutes. And do you think, no, I don't, my story's not that special. I don't really, what can I add to the canvas? You can add so much, because I guarantee there's other stay-at-home moms who echo what you feel, or there's other teachers, or yeah. So I that's what I enjoyed too, was, I equate it to, again, back when we would meet face to face, and hey, Lisa's having a wind down Wednesday at her house. She's having a get together. She's just inviting some friends over. And sure enough, you walk in and you say, hi, I'm Debra. And you go into the kitchen where the food is, right? Because I gravitate to where the food is. And you just start talking. Oh, hi, Lisa, I'm Debra. Hi, what do you do? So I was trying to find a way to recreate that in a virtual space as well. Like, we still can get to know each other. Let's do it. So.
Well, how perfect was the timing? I just want to say on a side note, I gravitate to where the wine is.
Exactly.
But how perfect was that? Because, the podcast world was getting big anyways, right? Mm-hmm. But it just probably doubled or tripled when the whole pandemic hit, because this was the only way to communicate. And so now you just push record. And if you got good editing skills and you can create a good conversation piece, it's right. Someone's going to listen to it, because, someone was telling me too that a lot of people were gravitating from like broadcasting, like news media, and now listening to podcasts because they wanted to be amongst their peers and just like listen to conversations like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, are you finding that has been true for you?
Yes, absolutely agree 100%. And all the, podcasting, coaching, and experts out there say, find your niche, and then you'll find your tribe, and then you'll find your audience. Mm-hmm. So, even if you don't pay attention to the numbers, like, don't look at your downloads, don't look at all that, because that doesn't tell the whole story. And I agree with you. There is an audience out there. There is a niche. There is a reason that you're doing this. And there are people who are tuning in and listening to you, maybe not constantly every week, but they follow you, they subscribe. At one point I was kind of falling into that numbers trap too. Like, oh my gosh, I only have X amount of listens or X amount of downloads. But somebody told me, they said, think of it this way, reframe that. What if every week you invited, every Monday morning, 40 people came to listen to you speak on your porch, or they came into your living room, 20 people, 10 people. You would be like amazed every week. Oh my God, there are 10 people coming to listen to me in my room or on my porch or in my backyard every week faithfully. So if you saw those 10 faces, you would be amazed that, oh my gosh, I have a following of 10 people or 20 or 40. So when you translate that to your podcast, that's still amazing. You have 10, 20, 40. That's amazing. They're following you. They're listening to you. They're listening to your guest stories, whatever it is. You've hooked them. Like, there's something that that resonate with them. There's something that's sitting in them that they want to hear from you every week. And that's amazing.
Yes, no, it's definitely amazing, because, to piggyback on your story, they were saying, I think someone did like what was this? I think she did some type of, I don't even know why I'm having a brain fart right now, but she did a little class on podcasting. And she was saying, and someone was asking, like, what if you don't have a lot of listeners? And she goes, well, even if it's 3, aren't they 3 lives that like matter? And how about if your message just truly resonates? They're listening, right? Yes.
Absolutely. They're listening. And that's what you have. And I think that's also why some podcasters burn out too, because they're equating it to like Insta followers or YouTube, like, thousands, and everybody wants to be the Joe Rogans, like, 1 million followers, and you're this and that. And we're all not going to be that, but we're all going to be successful in our own right. It's going to look different for everybody.
Yes, no, and absolutely. And I think I think we were talking about Joe Rogan with my very first podcast guest, which is Mark Ledlow. So hi, Mark Ledlow, just in case you're listening to this. And he was saying the same thing. I'm not trying to have these dreams of being a Joe Rogan. But Joe Rogan started just where we were, right? And but he's had time on his side. He has content. He's got many shows, but he kept going at it. And that's what very many people say, it's just, you got to keep putting it out, because as you continue, you build this library of messages that will eventually resonate. Or, what if they don't come across you until a year later, but they end up going back and listening to all of your podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? That's what I love about podcasting, is that it's evergreen. It just continues. As you said, if someone tunes in to 8 billion 2 years from now, oh my gosh, look at this back catalog. I can go back and listen to this person and that. So your show is constantly giving.
Yes. And so, okay, let me know, Debra, what were your revelations as time went by? As you interviewed every next guest, what were some big revelations for you as a podcaster, so to speak?
Oh, wow. Well, I think first is in terms of my guests, and I kind of touched on this before, the amount of people who feel like they don't matter, or they're just a part of the sheep and they don't. It was amazing to me how touched and appreciative people were to be able to tell their story. And I'm sure you've experienced this too. As they're talking and sharing with you, things are awakening. For many of the guests, right? And on the other side of the mic, don't you love hearing, oh my gosh, I've never told anybody that before.
Right.
I haven't thought about that in so long. And so that's been surprising. And it's been nice, I'm sure, again, like you, to be able to give that some light of day, to give them that opportunity to open up. Because I think, I don't want to put words in people's mouths, and I don't want to be presumptuous, but I wouldn't be surprised if after we say goodbye, the days following our recording, something awakens in them, or maybe they sort of revisit a happy memory, or just our conversation maybe brought back or gave them some confidence, or they changed in some way, because they got an opportunity to talk about themselves. I mean, how often does that happen? As far as myself, though, I have learned that, she can be taught. There's so much that, and I like learning. I'm, again, the technical side of it, as you know, the microphone and the mixers and the sound. And so I'm finding that I'm tapping into my inner geek a little bit, and I enjoy learning all that. But this is also, funny you asked that, because I just told my husband this the other day, podcasting has taught me to be a better listener.
Yes.
Right? Can you?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. 100%, 1,000%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. At work, in my everyday interactions with people, or at work, I'm listening, and then therefore I'm learning, and I'm intaking better, and I'm processing better, because I'm learning how to listen instead of I'm listening. Before, I feel like I was listening just so I'm listening to you so you could stop talking, and then I can say what I want to say. Whereas now I feel like, okay, no, I'm really taking a beat and I'm listening to what you have to say so I can respond accordingly. I've slowed it down. I'm not in so much of a rush to get my point across, So you're going this. I mean, you agree?
No, you absolutely nailed it, because it's even being present, right?
That's it.
And it's absolutely all about listening and being present, because you want to take in exactly what they're saying. You want to make sure that the message is conveyed properly, and then you follow, you know what I mean? It's also the leader. That's why I didn't even know, I'm probably all my audience is going to be she always talks about this. I had no clue I was going to go into live streaming. And then that led from a live stream channel into podcasting, because people were asking, how can I listen if I'm not able to tune in during your live streaming times, which was true. And they're like, do you have anything recorded? Then someone said, have you ever thought about doing a podcast? And I was like, no, I, unlike you, have not been very much into the podcast world, but there's so many people. So when I did it, I completely made the decision and probably jumped on it within 2 to 3 weeks. And I was just like, I have a podcast, everyone. But it just shows, you know what, even sometimes it's, especially this year, encouraging everyone to kind of start doing the things that they love to do, to have the courage, because you know what I mean? You never know where life is going to take you.
Yep.
So you might as well do it, because you don't want to look back 10 years from now and say, oh, I remember when Lisa or Debra started their podcast and look at where they are now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, yes, those are the different things. I feel so much like it's so neat, like Debra, when you start having conversations with people and it's more on a soul level, you start realizing who like your soul family is. Because I feel like even just the energy between us on this video.
I feel the same way. Absolutely. I felt that honestly in our email interactions before. As we were scheduling this, I'm like,
yeah,
at the same level. Laura was spot on in connecting us, because I think she must have picked up on that.
She must have picked up on our energy level, right?
That's why she's fabulous. But yeah, absolutely. I agree. I totally agree. Yes. And kudos to you for entering into the streaming space too, because, and the live, I know we joked, oh no video, but no, that's like the new trend in podcasting now, is definitely people want to like earbud it and listen as they're like doing all the things. But I think there's a growing number of audience listeners that really are taking to like the video podcast.
Yes.
So
yes,
you for doing that.
absolutely. Yeah. That was the one space. I'm not very tech savvy, so I have producers and a producing team, and they're all like, the only thing you have to do is take your video and upload it to YouTube. And I was like, how do I do that? But I literally had to learn. And because of that, I learned how to be a little bit more techie. I learned, like now I started noticing everyone's all like link in bio. And I was like, oh, how is that link in bio? And then I started playing around with it. You'd be surprised, guys, when you want to get something done, how fast you learn it.
That's it. Perfect. That's it. Absolutely. How fast you learn it. Because it's not like school where, I have to because the teacher's telling me to. It's because you are craving that knowledge and you're like, I just felt like a sponge, just reading, but I wanted to learn it. So yeah.
Right. And so how many podcasts now do you have underneath your belt?
I think I am now close to 50. I think I have 45 shows in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
No, I know. Amazing. And I'm on top of interviews with women. First of all, I started with women because I just feel like in terms of voices, I wanted, again, in the podcast, it was twofold. It was, I wanted to give women specifically a voice because I felt like there's also this resurgence, late 19, early 20. I felt like there was this resurgence, like out there on the internets. A lot of influencers were talking about women coming up and recognizing themselves and grabbing that seat at the table. The pay equity was an issue, the glass ceiling, all of that. Like there was an awakening of women's rights movements being recognized in the workplace. So I thought, okay, let me hone in on the women specifically, because we've got the bro culture out there and there's nothing wrong with that, but we hear from that side of the house a lot. And so I really wanted to focus on women, because I did toss that back and forth. I thought, well, should I invite, our male colleagues and allies on the show, of which there are many,
Yes.
In order to, now here's the podcasting side, right? In order to find my niche and to be more specific, I wanted to focus on the women. And honestly, that's kind of where my heart lies anyway. So it wasn't always just a marketing ploy either. It was kind of honestly where I sat anyway. So, but yeah.
And there's never, and I just want to let you know, Debra, there's never going to be a shortage of women for you to interview. So even if you even just start with that, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. So could you tell me maybe some of your more interesting stories, or like ones that you'll remember, some podcasts that you'll remember?
Yes. Honestly, from let me just start like at the 30,000 foot level. I take away, as I'm sure you do, from everyone's story, there's a little piece that just like builds in me. Like I take it away, something I learn or I'm touched. One show, my knee-jerk answer to that is I interviewed Emily. She is a teacher of autism children. So she teaches children with autism. And she was telling me a story. I asked her about a memorial, like a memory, like a fun event that happened with her kids, something she can recall. And she was talking about the time she took her kids out to our local airport when the Blue Angels were scheduled to fly. So she did like a little field trip for her class, and she took them out there. And while she was telling the story, she was getting emotional and choked up. And as I am unlike you, I'm audio only, so I couldn't see her, but I could feel her emotions. I could hear her getting choked up, and she actually recognized it. She said, okay, I just need to take a minute because I'm getting emotional, because the look on the children's faces, those of you who are familiar with autistic children know that they sometimes have trouble like articulating and communicating. But when they communicated to her physically, like they grabbed her hand and the smiles on their faces, and they were pointing up at the sky, looking at the airplanes, and the joy, the just pure joy that these children were experiencing, as that she was a witness to, it just touched her heart so deeply. As she was retelling the story, she was getting emotional. And we took a minute. As you know, you have to give your guests like time to breathe.
Yes.
And be in the moment, as you said, be present. And I did, and that was just amazing. And we finished the show, and we talked a little bit afterwards, and it was a fantastic show. She was extremely happy with it. She gave me permission to leave that moment in. Not to sound funny, but coming from a podcaster point of view, I was like, I did it. Like that's just I don't know. That's just like, I don't know what the word is, but it's like, you're doing something right, Deb. You know, I asked her the right questions. I got her to that point. I was respectful of her space, but I did it. Like, cause as an interviewer, it's hard to know sometimes, especially audio only. Am I okay? Are we in a good space? Are you okay to talk about this? Or should we continue on? Without those visual cues, it's sometimes difficult to gauge. So the fact that I got her there, we worked our way through it together. It was just like a major like win in my book, as you said, being on the other side of the microphone, because it's a lot of responsibility being a host. The
Yes.
guest is trusting you, right, to take them on this journey, this 20-30 minute journey. And they're in a vulnerable space. And so it's your responsibility to carry them through that space. That's how I look at it anyway. It's the burden's on me. Like I need to do my due diligence to get us through this show in a safe space, and for them to feel like this was not a waste of their time, that this was a good, productive 20-30 minutes of their life.
Absolutely.
So to get through that tough moment as a newbie podcaster, and as somebody who hadn't really shared that story before, it was just a huge like, oh my God. So that's my rather long answer to your question.
No, and to actually share on that, my very first podcast with Mark Ledlow was the same thing. It was on video. And typically I'm the type of person that wants to always stop a person from crying just because I'm more consoling. And in the middle of recording, I had just said, you have to let him have this moment, because he took me by surprise. I was actually asking him why he named his podcast The Fearless Mindset, and he's military, right? So that reminds me, I have to go wish him happy Veterans Day. But
yes, thank you for your service.
Happy Veterans Day. But he and I thought he was gonna say, oh, because of military and we're fearless. And he stopped and he started tearing up because he named it the Fearless Mindset Podcast because he had lost his father to cancer. And he was absolutely saying that his father was the complete inspiration to the name of his podcast. And then I started crying because I had lost my mother 2 years to cancer. And so that's what you're saying. What's really cool about podcasts is there's epiphanies that actually happen either on screen or on audio. And those are the golden moments that you're trying to capture. You know what I mean?
That's
because
right.
Hollywood will try and capture it 50 times, and so be it, because they are actors and actresses. Right. But these are raw moments for everyone.
Absolutely. And you perfectly. First of all, I'm sorry for your loss, for your mother's passing.
Oh, No, thank you. Yeah, she's very dear. And I didn't even have that revelation. I had talked to Mark many times leading up to the podcast recording, and I didn't know that that's what we had in common. And it was amazing I was like, now, Mark, I know why we met.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
And that was amazing that you had that moment.
I did have it on my very first podcast recording.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's great.
And that's what I'm saying. You and I, Debra, we share the same things, because when you were just describing that story right now, I was like, I know exactly what she's talking about. Like, you have to be quiet. You have to let that moment ride.
Right.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, it's those moments that was also my why for starting the show, as I'm sure for you. That's it. That's it. You want those human stories to share.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely. And now we even answered the question why, and about like why people are gravitating from like, broadcast, news journalism and all that kind of stuff to podcasts now, because they are the real stories. This is where you're going to get, you're going to get some really good information here. And we are right. And we are talking about more inspiring things about purpose and inspiration and passion.
I absolutely celebrate that. I'm so happy that I found your podcast, because especially in this day and age, I think that some of us are looking for that connection, and we want to hear. I don't want to hear what the, talking heads feed me. I want to hear like the stories of people like me out there doing their thing, the motivational, the inspiring, the touching. So that I love your why for starting your podcast too, your show, because we need that. We need to get to know each other. The world is not that big. We have more in common than we do differences, I believe. So.
Right. And for me, that's what it was. It was like, when I initially started my live stream, I was thinking that I was going down, I was connecting to find organizations, because I wanted to start maybe a nonprofit organization. Mm-hmm. So I was using that as research and development. And then little did I know, I was just like, oh, I know how to ask the right questions, because it's just the curious nature of who I am. And then, of course, it equated to live streaming and then video recording. So it's almost just like having a genuine heart-to-heart connection and conversation with someone. It's just being recorded now and being shared across the globe, hopefully with where we're both going. So then it serves to bring others value.
Yes, absolutely. To bring others value, that's it. That's the golden ticket right there. And you, as you pointed out, I won't run out of guests. You won't either.
I won't either. I just don't know if I could cover 8 billion people. So my producers were like, okay, Lisa, if you have 144 guests in the next 3 years, and I know that he was it was very interesting. He was calculating it from an analytical standpoint, and it was almost doable. However, it was more so like my vision was more that there's 8 billion stories out there. And, I don't know if I'll be able to tell all 8 billion stories, but I'm hoping that I could share some really great ones, and then maybe even use this as a legacy project for other people to take over, because it's not just me. There's so many of us out there that are willing to share some great stories. Mm-hmm. So that hopefully becomes the vision. Like, you are a counterpart and a sister to me that's doing the same thing. So you have 50 now. I have probably 4, and I've got 8 billion more to do.
Oh, now what month did you start? Did you start in October or?
We did start in October.
Okay.
So Laura was my guest last week. And then now they're just like piling up. So I'm even doing several recordings in a week, but launching, once a week.
Okay.
So it is nice, because it allows you good editing time, or not to launch properly. Are you launching every day now? Are you launching?
No, I'm weekly. So I have a new show uploaded that drops every Monday.
Okay.
So like you, I was recording 2 to 3 times a week, 2 to 3 guests a week.
Uh-huh.
I've decided though, for my own well-being, to take December off from recording. Like, I'm still going to do all the things like the promotions, and I still have a library of shows to upload every week in December. But I'm just going to hit pause on recording in December and just sort of I need a break. I'm not doing seasons, so.
Very well deserved though, Debra. I can't wait to see where the podcast takes you. And I'm pretty sure, as I tell many of my guests, I would love to have you on again. At least, how does it feel to be on that side?
It's kind of fun. It's like less brain power, Because as you know, when you're on that side, you're listening, but there's so much other stuff going on. Like, you're paying attention to the time and the questions and the flow, and you're thinking about so much. But as a guest, it's just like, okay, I'm good. What else throw at me? I got this,
Right? So have a seat, Debra, and you did. And so now you are the other one on the other side. But I just wanted to say thank you. Is there any parting message that you want to leave with the audience, or any takeaways that you want to leave?
I first of all just want to thank you and your team so much. You made this process incredibly easy. So if you're watching this and Lisa asks you to be a guest, say yes, because it's been an experience to be a part of the 8 billion. I guess if you're thinking of podcasting, don't wait any longer. Like Lisa alluded to, just do it. I know staring at that red record button can be so intimidating, but just hit start. And you will be amazed at the doors and the pathways that open up to you. So go for it.
Yes, amazing. And if you ever have any hesitations, contact myself or contact Debra, and we will convince you to do it. Have the courage and bravery to step out and be who you are and express yourself creatively.
Absolutely. Beautifully put. Perfect.
Yes, but thank you so much, Debra. I'm sure we will be connecting even after this, but for all of the audience of 8 Billion Project, thank you so much for tuning into this show with Debra Coleman. Debra Coleman has a podcast, Have a Seat.
Mm-hmm.
Have a Seat. So
Conversation. Mm-hmm.
And it's found on Apple and Spotify.
And Google Play.
And Google Play. So if you have a chance, guys, take a listen to it. But Debra, again and again and again, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being on this. And I look forward to seeing what happens to both of us in the near future.
Absolutely. Me too. 8 billion. Let's do this. Absolutely. Thank you
awesome.
again.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If it's moved you in any way, please review and share your thoughts, or text me your thoughts at 949-247-2800.